Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. We have reached the end of the line, kids. Not for the show. Everybody calm down. I'm going to keep doing the 6M as long as I got breath in me, which these days is hard because, when you have a lingering cough and pollen and allergies in the South in 2025 in the frickin' month of May, it's not so easy, okay? But no, we've reached the end of the line for the Back to the Future franchise. Not going to make a lot of witty, clever banter and jokes back and forth here. I'm just going to cut to the chase and just get to it. This is the part 3. As we said, this is the final installment of the Back to the Future franchise, at least for now. And if Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale have anything to say about it, you'll never see a sequel. And coming out of watching this again, if I'm being straight, I 100% agree with him. I don't need to see a return. But we'll get into that here today, as we did when we reviewed part 1 and when we reviewed part 2. We'll do it again here today to see if maybe Phil feels any differently. Maybe if either one of us had changed our opinions on certain aspects of part 3. But I can't wait to talk about this because, man, if you haven't seen this in a while, I encourage you to go back and watch it. And I encourage you to watch it after the other two, at least maybe a day or two apart if you can. And if you've never seen this, if you've only seen part 1 or 2, I encourage you to watch it because, man, this is a much different movie. Tonally, a much different movie. And again, it's been years since I've seen it, so maybe I just didn't recall. But we'll save that. We'll get to it. But first, let's do this. Back to the Future, Part 3, is a 1990 American science fiction Western film and the third installment of the Back to the Future franchise. The film was directed by Robert Zemeckis and stars Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Mary Steenburgen, Thomas F. Wilson, and Leah Thompson. The film continues immediately following Back to the Future Part 2 from 1989. While stranded in 1955 during his time travel adventures, Marty McFly discovers that his friend Dr. Emmett Doc Brown, trapped in 1885, was killed by Buford Mad Dog Tannen, Biff's great-grandfather. Everybody got that? Take notes. Marty travels to 1885 to rescue Doc and return once again to 1985, but matters are complicated when Doc falls in love with Clara Clayton, portrayed, of course, by Mary Steenburgen. Back to the Future Part 3 is filmed in California and Arizona and was produced on a $40 million back-to-back with Part 2. As we said in the Part 2 review, Part 3 was released in the United States on May 25th, 1990, 6 months after the previous installment, and grossed $245.1 million worldwide, and it's the 6th highest grossing film of 1990. And let me tell you, it didn't hit as hard in terms of box office as Part 1 or Part 2, but there you have it, kids. That is your lowdown for Back to the Future Part 3. Phil, we established in our review of Part 2 that Part 2 is your favorite. After having watched Part 3, I don't expect you to change your mind, but what do you come away with after watching Part 3 in terms of your overall opinion of this flick?
I still enjoy it. There's no such thing as a bad Back to the Future. All 3 movies are good movies.
Mm-hmm.
I just think depending on your preference, I don't know many people that say that Back to the Future 3 is their favorite. But again, it's not a bad movie. I still enjoy it. It's just so tonally different than the other 2 movies.
It is very tonally different. There's moments it doesn't feel like a comedy at all. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's definitely a comedy. There's certain
Sure.
bits of it that are very, very funny. But yeah, it's so different from the other 2 movies.
Yeah.
Even with all of the references and callbacks to the other 2 movies, it's still so different.
It is. And they don't let you forget it's a comedy, but after having watched it today, first time in years, that scene in the bar is sure not like the scene in the diner. This isn't Biff the Blowhard, who the worst thing he could do is punch you. And, of course, older Biff will kill you But that's not who this is. This guy's carrying a weapon and could have killed Marty on the spot. Like, for me, watching that scene, like, it's weird to say, I kind of felt like the danger of that moment. Like, this is not the same guy that Marty's always known. Do you know what I mean? That to me kind of set the tone for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, he still fits that vibe of the big brooding bully. Um, he just kind of feels like Bluto, or uh,
Ah,
he, he still fits that same kind of vibe. He feels like Bluto, uh, or Pete from like the Goofy stuff.
hmm.
Still,
I love the Bluto reference. Well done.
yeah,
So you're more of a Bluto, not a Brutus, by the way. I never understood. I've never looked it up. But Bluto's the name. That's the name.
yeah. No, his name's Bluto. That's what I think. I also did not notice how much in that scene, Marty playing off of him reminds me of Bugs Bunny. Even the shirt he's wearing and everything,
Ooh,
it's like when he's shooting at him and he starts like dancing. It's very Bugs Bunny when he starts doing like the moonwalk and he hops on the plank. Very very Bugs Bunny.
the shirt reference is fantastic because it is like the one where Bugs is the gunfighter and
Yes,
Yosemite Sam busts through the doors.
yes.
Oh man, they play blackjack, of course, and he's like, "Can I stand on one card?" And of course, his card is 21 even. So, Bugs Bunny. We don't do enough. We don't reference Bugs Bunny near enough on this show. So, well done for that. Yeah, that's a great pull. And him doing the moonwalk in there in his Nikes, which he told Doc he was going to change. So it wasn't a complaint. I was sure to make sure it wasn't a complaint. But my biggest statement about part two, they're spinning a lot of plates. I didn't feel that way this time. To me, anyway. I guess maybe because we only traveled to one location and that was it. Like, of course, the movie starts in 55 and then jumps to 1885. But I guess for me, Phil, I didn't feel like this movie was quite as busy as part two.
I mean, three is really back to its roots in a lot of ways, with like
Mhm.
the love story and stuff ain't that's there, and just like the simple conflict of trying to get back to your time period. Like in a lot of ways, it's closer to the original concept than the second movie is.
Oh, that's well done. Yeah. Part two really does kind of go far to the right, I would say, or far to the left, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this does kind of make
Yeah,
it feel a lot simpler.
yeah, and I mean, I think what makes Back to the Future two so good is that um, all of the stakes are bigger. It feels like a bigger movie production wise,
Mm.
and everything. Like the stakes of going to the future, and then even the stakes of returning to this dystopian future. It just feels like a bigger conflict. Um, so in some ways, it's a bit jarring for the third movie that everything is scaled back down again. But
Mm.
I think that that's part of what works about three as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Would it surprise you to know that Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, and Tom Wilson have all said this was their favorite of the trilogy?
That doesn't surprise me because I just think like filming in that time period and a lot of stuff. I think a lot of what I like about this movie is how much the actors like poured themselves into it and just how
Mm.
committed they were. Like, I think Michael J. Fox is fantastic in this movie. He's so
Yes.
likable. He's so funny, um, and he does multiple roles again, and he's so likable in all of the roles he plays. Of course, as Marty, but even as his ancestor in the past, he's just like just how subdued he is, and just like, all right, that's kind of cool. He's
And
got
what's
the fucking Irish accent.
Yeah, he does. And the Seamus, by the way, we finally met a McFly that was not a coward,
Yes.
right? Like even future Marty is something of a coward, and his son is a schmuck.
Yeah.
But like Seamus McFly is not a coward at all, man. Like he's just a regular family man.
Seamus is just essentially what you would assume Marty was going to end up as a family man, like cool,
Yeah.
calm, subdued, and he's just kind of like, "Oh, you don't have to do any of that. Like, you don't have to prove yourself to anybody." But then, like his brother Martin McFly is, I assume, more like teenage Marty is.
We just assumed that Marty took a lot of his DNA in terms of family heritage here from Martin because he was more of a hothead.
Yes.
That was kind of cool. That explains the name. Well, does it explain the name? You know, I don't want to get caught up in a time loop here where Marty named himself essentially. But, you know, it is what it is. By the way, it, tonally, again, this is much different than part 2 and part 1. Is it too different to you? And I know it's hard to go back and critique these movies. We've all enjoyed them for years, but like, does it fit? Does it still work in terms of a part 3 for this trilogy?
I think it still fits because it has a lot of the same appeals. I think if Michael J. Fox isn't as great in this movie, it doesn't work. If Doc isn't so likable in this movie, also doesn't work. Um, Christopher Lloyd is so funny in this movie. Uh, just so many choices he makes. Just so many writing choices they make with him. Just like that's preposterous. Who would ever fall in love at first sight? And that's exactly what happens to him with no self awareness that he said any of this stuff a half hour ago. He just completely forgot about all of that. It's so funny.
Yeah, dude, that's really good. I kind of feel like maybe this is his best film of the 3.
It might be. I think he's the most funny and uh he's the most likable throughout. And maybe because you spend more time with him in this movie than you do at least present day Doc, because we don't see him a lot in the first movie because we see Doc in the past,
Hmm.
which is a completely different character. And even the bits of him we see in the second movie, I feel like we spend way more time with Marty. In a lot of ways, Back to the Future 3 is Doc's story.
It really is. Yeah, because he finally found happiness. Like the series was really about making sure Marty and his family were good. First, make sure Marty's good, then his family. And then it's like, well, there's only one person left. Let's make sure Doc's good. So Doc found happiness too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. But yeah, multiple things. Like even his line of "What idiot dressed you like that?" And Marty's like, "You did."
Yeah. Oh, I do like that when he found out that Doc dies in the past. At least we didn't have to go through this rigmarole of Brown tell him I don't want to hear it. You can't tell me. Like he just blurted it out, so we didn't have to go through that like another plot twist, you know.
Yeah, you can't change the whole man was not meant to meddle with time speech that he gave him in the first movie. We had completely moved on from that, thankfully.
Yeah,
Um, I love that Marty just doesn't even hesitate several times when the choice is to save Doc. He always makes the decision to save him.
yeah. Very again, very tonally, it's a very different film. I enjoy a good western, I do. But so I enjoyed this movie for that. I do like this movie. I said in our review of part 2, maybe I liked it better than part 2. After watching this again, I can't say I like it better. Do I think that part 2 destroyed part 3? For me, I don't think it did. I do think part 2 is a better movie, but I did enjoy part 3, really.
I do. I really do like 3. It's a lot of finality to 3 that I enjoy. And that's why I agree to your point. They don't need to make another one. Um, there's so much that they wrapped up with this one that we don't need to go back. I mean,
Mhm.
the way they book in Marty's entire story arc of him finally learning, like, you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to uh, jump to the fence anytime anybody calls you a name. And keeping that through line of the accident going from the second movie to this movie and finally getting explanation of it, I thought it worked so well for his character, especially with how different he is from his father. And just like his father had the complete opposite issue of. He wouldn't stand up for himself, and Marty didn't know when to not pick a fight.
And to be fair, Phil, the George McFly that raised this Marty was not the successful George McFly,
Yes.
right? He was unsure of himself. He was cowardly. He had settled for what life gave him and didn't want anything else. And so, like, Marty was kind of always behind the eight ball and felt maybe like he had to, you
Yes.
know, not pick a fight, but never back down kind of thing.
Never back down, overcompensate way too
Yeah.
much sometimes. Um, yeah, and so I was glad that they did wrap up that character arc for him in such a satisfying way.
Mm-hmm.
All the Western stuff with Marty, I think, on rewatch is so great. Having the callback of Biff watching Fistful of Dollars in his jacuzzi with the women, and that's how he beats Biff's ancestor in the past uh with the same gag from Fistful of Dollars that Biff thought was genius. I thought that was a great callback.
That was really good. He ends up in manure again, which we had to remind everybody that he hates manure.
Yes. The manure running gag was also great here. Mad Dog is by far the most terrifying of all the Biffs. Um,
Oh, yeah.
easily. Um, he always looks dirty. You know why he always looks so dirty? He always looks like he took a face full of soot from
Yeah.
something.
Like a chimney sweep.
It
He's Dick
does.
Van Dyke and Mary Poppins. That's what he is.
Yeah, he always looks dirty. He always has this level of grunge to him. Um, Also, very funny to see with the scene with him and Clara that also a big womanizer, like every other Biff.
Yeah. Yeah. The Council of Biffs.
The
It's not,
Council of Biffs.
not a thing. Yeah. And honestly, like this version of Biff doesn't need those three guys. Like every version of Biff, all of his ancestors had three dudes running around with him. This guy doesn't need any help, Phil. He is the fact that anybody warmed up to him on any level is bizarre because he is not a good person at all, dude. He's horrible.
Yes.
Absolutely horrible. Yeah. A lot of synergy here, kids, in case you hadn't figured it out, between part 1, 2, and 3. All three, a lot of synergy, a lot of harmonizing happening. I'm okay with it. I don't get too bent out of shape over all they repeat the same exact scene 3 movies in a row. When we talk about time travel, and again, to our knowledge, it's not possible, but how would we know? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I would suspect there would be harmonizing to it to some degree. Like if you are a time traveling aficionado, if you read books and seen movies, then maybe you have the same opinion. So I'm not too awful bothered by that. I like the idea, Phil, that people are it does kind of feel all right, let me say this. It does kind of feel like you're either all good or all bad. And your ancestors are all good or they're all bad. It kind of feels like no one has an opportunity to maybe turn heel or turn babyface at any given point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that it's just the point is that there are patterns throughout people's ancestry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's one of those nature versus nurture things. Like you have the choice to be whoever you want, but sometimes being around certain people and doing certain things that's gonna change your outlook on life.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. But I love that there's like this through line of all of these reoccurring things in all three movies because it's really driving home this idea that time goes in a loop and history repeats itself. And there's like this Mobius loop throughout the movie of all of these things that happen more than once.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I love that idea. I love the idea of synergy. I do love the Western stuff that we get. As I said, I enjoy a good Western. It's very cool to me that there's some classic Western actors in here. Doug Taylor, Harry Carey Jr., Pat Buttram, and of course we've got who else here? We've got it's not the Western bit, but Needles Flea shows up at the end with his gang, which was laid out in part 2, and that's how Marty was getting in trouble and the future self, all that's been erased. No accident at the end. But yeah, again, I was here for the old guys as well. Burt Gilliam, if you know Blazing Saddles, you know him. I
Hmm.
love that he was in this movie, by the way.
Yes.
Nice
Um,
callback.
I love that the Western aspect of it didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't just like, hey, let's just make a Western, because it had been referenced in the first movie, and
Hmm.
you know, Doc was a fan of Westerns, and that was referenced more than once. Or the fact that, like I said, Fistful of Dollars was referenced in the second movie, so it wasn't just like Western came out of nowhere.
Right. It did seem odd at the time if you weren't connecting the dots, right? Because the flashy DeLorean, the future, 1955, and suddenly 1885. But no, if you were paying attention, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I also love the um kind of paradox of, you would assume that because Doc is like a student of science and space exploration would be his thing, that he would be a Western fan, because of course,
Mm,
like when you draw the comparisons to like even something like Toy Story, where once Buzz Lightyear showed up, oh, I'm done with Westerns. But also with the time period that Doc grew up in, of course he would be a big fan of cowboys and Westerns. And so I love the idea that he's this man of science but also loves Westerns, and he
mm.
wanted to be a cowboy.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. Strickland's back here. James Tolkien, who played Strickland. He's actually the ancestor. Were you surprised he didn't say the word slacker anywhere?
He did say discipline, so
He
close
did say
enough.
discipline. Yeah, that's pretty good. See, Mark McClure did come back. That's, of course, Jimmy Olsen from the original Superman films, Wendy Jo Sperber. So both of Marty's brother and sister at the very end showed up.
Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's main event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com.
Jeffrey Wiseman was back in this movie again, and as George McFly, because once again, Crispin Glover not have anything to do with it. I don't know, Phil. I kind of feel like for that last scene, what'd you put the prosthetics on him for? Just give him the haircut. Just it doesn't matter. The camera's not on top of him. It's kind of weird though, I will say, that there wasn't a moment where Marty rushed to hug his dad, because remember his dad had been killed.
Yes.
But again, Phil, you can't have that moment. That's one little payoff we didn't get because Glover wasn't in this movie.
Yes, I agree.
That was can't say it was a letdown, but it was something I definitely made a note of for sure. So in every film of the trilogy, there's great trivia here, by the way, kids. There is a scene where Marty is knocked unconscious and awoken by someone resembling his mother, as he thinks his past experiences have been a dream. And there is always a scene with Marty entering a public drinking place where Biff or one of his relatives enters, calling out, "Hey, McFly." There's always a scene with Marty being chased by someone resembling Biff or Biff himself and his gang, and the time machine always becomes unusable at some point. This is, yeah, once you start
Yes.
adding things up. Characters related to Biff have been covered in manure in every film and are always beaten up by Marty. And lastly, history has always changed somehow for the better or for the worst. So, yeah,
Yes.
lot of rhyming here, a lot of synergy happening here.
Yes. He plays that same game from 7-Eleven in all three
Hmm.
games. That's why he was good at it in the West.
I'm not saying that Biff's ancestor, Mad Dog, don't call me Mad Dog. I'm not saying he should have been killed because it's not that kind of movie. But
Mm.
had Marty actually dueled with him, I don't know. It's a comedy, Phil. I guess we couldn't go there. It would have been too dark. I guess the way that Marty played it with the piece of iron under his shirt makes a lot more sense than just actually shooting the guy.
Yeah. I think that changes a lot about the Marty McFly character if he goes
Mm,
back to the past and like brutally murders Biff's ancestor, and he just
right.
shoots him in front of everybody. That would have looked crazy.
Oh, and then if he does that, there's no Biff, right? Like,
I guess technically, yeah.
yeah, because there would have been no Biff. By the way, speaking of the bulletproof vest, there's one that appears in all three movies. The first movie, Doc wears the one, so he's not killed by the Libyans. We don't have to talk about it. In the second movie, Biff watches a scene from Fistful of Dollars, in which the man with no name wears a steel plate, as you referenced earlier, and then, of course, here. So, yeah, bunch of stuff. Mary Steenburgen's new to the movie, and Mary Steenburgen's done a lot of stuff. So, Phil, are you staying back in 1885 because of Mary Steenburgen, or are you going to go back to the future?
No, I think if I'm Doc, you've got to stay in the past. I mean, he wanted to stay in the past to begin
Sure.
with. He sent the letter to Marty that said, "Don't come back here."
Yeah, and he got killed 7 days later. Yeah. By the way, I don't know that I've seen a movie that's bad with her in it. She's so good. She's such an accomplished actress.
Yes.
Nice addition here. I love that all the cast is back. That car has taken a beating, can we say, that DeLorean?
Yes. Clara is very funny in the chase when she is trying to catch up with them on the train. She's going through all of this stuff and yelling Emmett the whole time. And the funniest bit of it is she finally gets into the locomotive and she pulls the string to get their attention. And he's like, "Clara, come out to me." And she's just like, "I don't know if I can." I'm just like, "Well, wait a minute. You just climbed all over this train and like chased them down with a horse, but now you're scared to come out of the cab."
No kidding.
Locomotive.
That is a good point. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Man, we're bouncing like crazy. That train at the end, which by the way is now on display at Universal Studios Florida. That train is awesome. Like, we're not going to get caught up in how in the world did Doc build that and how in the world did he get, I don't know. How did he make the flux capacitor work? All this other stuff. How did he make another one? Like, I don't know. But it's fine. We don't have to get too wrapped up in it. But that train at the end was a nice touch.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think it's such a great moment because it's again where Doc keeps saying like, "No, time travel is a problem. Like time travel ruined everything." But you see again where he is willing to take a chance. It's really a callback to the end of the first movie, because at the end of the first movie, we get this idea, first of all, that he's dead. We've gotten 3 fake outs of his death now. And there's again where he comes back where he keeps saying, "I'm going to destroy this infernal time machine." And he finally gets his wish, which Marty says, "Well, he wanted it destroyed." And then he pops back up in a new time machine.
Yeah, no kidding. Said he wasn't going to do it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been so easy for them to end part 3 with the words "the end" with a question mark, and they chose not to.
Yeah. But it's such a great moment when he comes back and he has his whole family.
Yeah.
He references Jules Burns multiple times, and so the fact that his son's name is Jules, I thought that was a great touch.
That's pretty cool. I was here for that. Hey, so speaking of the DeLorean kids, the DeLorean and its duplicates, meaning every time the car zipped back and forth and there was another car or two in the same movie, whatnot, made a total of 15 trips through time, and 13 of them were on screen. I had not been keeping count, but man, that's a lot of trips back and forth. It's a wonder they didn't screw everything up.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, Doc being wrong about things multiple times throughout this movie, very funny. When Marty's getting into DeLorean and he's getting ready to send him back into the past, and he says, "Well, what about the Indians?" He's like, it's just an image." And then he goes back in time, and it actually is a horde of Indians racing at him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doc sent him off multiple times in this movie.
Yeah.
He sends him back dressed like that when he's telling him the whole time, like, "I don't think this is how." He's like, "It's a Western."
Yeah. You don't have to worry about it. Where you're going, the Indians won't be there. Like, all right, sure. Yeah. What did you love the fact that the Indians didn't even balk at the car coming at them?
Yeah, they just kind of attacked him like he was like some aberration or something.
Sure. To them, it's one of their gods, maybe. I don't know. Here's a good one in a scene that was cut from the film, talking about murder. Buford, we didn't name the guy. Buford, it's Buford Mad Dog. Buford, don't call me Mad Dog Tannen. Shoots Marshall Strickland in the back. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't put that in. We didn't really need that, dude. We didn't need that. I do think murder changes a movie, depending on what the movie is, of course.
Yeah, it would have been present day Strickland sitting over his body with the with like almost like Jango Fett with the helmet up to his forehead.
Yes. Oh, that's good. Yeah, so here's another good one. Before sending Marty back to 1885, Doc mentions that he uses the drive-in theater so Marty doesn't run into a tree that existed in the past. Because in Back to the Future, the 85 version, one of the first things Marty does in 55 is run into Farmer Peabody's pine tree that existed in the past.
Yes.
So good. What did you think about the Clint Eastwood name being used for Marty in this movie and how they named it the Eastwood Ravine when he got back to 1985? Man, that was a nice touch.
I love that this is again where Marty unintentionally changed pop culture because, of course, Marty unintentionally discovered rock music, not Chuck Berry.
Of course.
But then he also began the legend of Clint Eastwood as this legendary cowboy. Unintentionally.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. Yeah.
And I mean, that really drove home at when he's talking about, well, what if I don't go out there? What if I just don't have to do it with him? Well, then Clint Eastwood will forever be known as the biggest coward in the West.
Couldn't have that. Here's something great. If again, kids, if you've ever watched a Western and you probably recognize the bartender is Matt Clark. He played Kelly the bartender in The Outlaw Josie Wales in 1976, who served Clint Eastwood. He's also the guy that plays Chester the bartender, serving Marty McFly's version of Clint Eastwood.
Yes. I love when he initially comes in, he asks for water, and he's like, water? Might as well go dunk your head out there in the trough with the horses.
Yeah.
And then he pours in the whiskey, which is smoking for some reason when he pours it for him.
How about when he sits down with his ancestors and they pour him water to drink and it's all cloudy?
It looks horrible, which I would assume because it's the West and like there are no like Brita water filters and all these other things. So I would assume so. And it comes in with the rabbits that she cooks and I'm like, this all looks horrible. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Well, then building Hill Valley is nice. You see the clock tower being constructed. Like, man, I didn't realize how old this town is he's been living in, dude.
Yeah.
Crazy. It goes back a ways, apparently. 1885. I can't sit here and tell you I know when the town I'm living in was founded. I assume it was in the 1800s, but I could be wrong. Well, you're in Chicago. Your story's different. Like Chicago has got a lot of history behind it, but in a small town, in a small southern state, not as much history, unless you're Charlotte or Asheville or Greensboro or something. But like for me, I can't sit here and tell you what the history of my town is, man. I have no clue.
Deep, rich history of Chicago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a little different.
Yeah, well, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. It's estimated that Universal saved between 10 and 15 million by filming part 2 and part 3 at the same time. I would have to say that's true.
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah, the third movie is smaller in scale, so I would assume that helped.
Yeah, yeah, and it just does. It feels more personal, I guess.
Yes.
To some degree. What did you think about Doc's refrigerator?
Ridiculous. Just the one ice cube, and he's like, iced tea?
Yeah. No idea what's going to come out of that thing. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's a refrigerator.
Yeah, his apparatus that made the breakfast for him.
Yeah.
That's the same as everything from the first movie, if I remember
It
correctly.
is.
Yep.
Yeah, the Rube Goldberg machine. Yeah. Pretty cool. And we got ZZ Top in this movie with no explanation of how they did it. They twirled their guitars and drum, which is a nice touch.
Yes.
I like that they didn't go too nuts and try to fit a ZZ Top song into them actually being on stage. But they kind of look like cowboys anyway, so it kind of fit anyhow.
Yeah, it kind of fit. Yeah, that whole scene of Marty just like, yeah, we got to go. Like, we've got plans. And the entire time, Doc, who has been straightforward, like, oh, you can't have fun at this school dance and all this other stuff. And he's just like, hey, Claire, let's dance.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, every time he contradicts himself in this movie, it's so funny.
Yeah. And Buford, Mad Dog, tells him, if you're here, he said, I'll shoot you down like a duck. it's one of the only bits of comedy he really had because he's so intense, man.
Yes, I love even Buford gets idioms wrong.
Yes.
And that's like a through line through their entire ancestry that even Buford gets all these like famous idioms wrong.
I mean, even if that card ended up in the prehistoric area, there would be a freaking Biff caveman running around being the worst of all the cavemen.
Exactly. He's
You know what
running
I
around
mean?
being the absolute worst and like absolutely butchering a famous catchphrase or something.
Yeah, for sure. We kicked the show off by talking about should this be revisited. After watching this, I don't ever need to see a sequel. And if the idea is, well, Zemeckis and Gale won't allow it, that's fine. But I would hope the studio respects their wishes once, you know, and we don't, of course, hopefully many years down the road, once we lose both these gentlemen, I would hope the studios would respect their wishes. Phil, is there a planet on which the studio respects their wishes and doesn't make more Back to the Future movies?
I would hope so, but of course, these studios like money, so would not be surprised if they attempt to someday.
They love the established IP, man. Everybody's always talking about, I don't understand why there can't be original. Why do you always have to make prequels and sequels and reboots? And I'm like, I'm not saying I agree with or disagree with the notion I like to see more original films. But Phil, you know this. For a studio to get behind an unknown creator or director or an original screenplay or a movie that's not been tested or an idea that's not been done in quite the way they want to do it, dude, that is not the easiest thing in the world to do. They'd much more quickly get behind a reboot or a sequel or a prequel because it is established IP, right?
Of course, because it's you have a proven property here. You have a
Mhm.
proven commodity, so why not?
And I know they did tack was it a Back to the Future cartoon at one point, I think.
Yes.
I mean, dude, if it were animated, and if let's say Zemeckis signed off on that, let's say that one of the streamers, Amazon or whoever, said, "We're going to throw a bunch of money at this, and we want to do it justice. And if we can't, we'll try to get the original actors to do the voices." And I mean, if he were on board with that, I think I'd be fine with it because it's animated. You're not rewriting the films. You're not rebooting anything. But I just have a problem with this notion that anything can be rebooted. I mean, that's true, but it doesn't mean it should be.
Yeah. I have no interest in a reboot or a sequel to this movie.
Yeah, not at all. So, what does work in this movie for you? Like, and again, we know this was the lowest earning of the three, and even though the actors enjoyed doing it, is it Doc's story that makes this movie work for you? I mean, what all, in your opinion, what is it that works here? Is it just Doc, or is there other things at play here?
I think Doc's story here makes this work
Mm,
because it's such a rewarding moment of him going from this loner kind of guy, where I mean, Marty is really his only friend that we see throughout the three movies. And he
mm.
goes from that to a guy that is a family man and that has found meaning in life outside of his invention. And I think that says a lot. I mean, because when he shows up at the end, it's so rewarding because again, he has his whole family with him, and he's not as worried about this idea of ruining the future. And even like his message to them when he leaves, he's just like, the future is not written yet. You can make it anything you want.
Mm.
Um, I think that's just such a great message to end the franchise on, or end this trilogy on. But it just feels like his character has come full circle.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But also Marty is very enjoyable, and again, his character arc throughout the three movies is also really good. And Michael J. Fox is just so enjoyable in this movie. Um, I mean, I just think the cast overall. I mean, you got to give it to Biff as well. Every version of Biff is entertaining.
Yes.
Every single version of him is incredibly entertaining. Um, I think the cast is fantastic throughout.
From Biff to Griff to Buford.
Yes, Buford.
God. Yeah. Speaking of the animated series, it came out in September of 1991, ran for 2 seasons. It took place after the movie, meaning after part three, and depicted the further adventures of Marty, Doc, Clara, and Doc and Clara's sons, Jules and Vern, plus Einstein. The DeLorean time machine is rebuilt and is now voice activated. Have you seen any of those? I can't say that I've seen any of them.
Yeah, I've never seen the cartoon.
I'd like to look it
I
up.
remember how it looked. I remember it existed, but I have never seen it.
Yeah, I'd like to look that up. See, Doc Brown states that his German ancestor's surname was von Braun. This is a reference to Werner von Braun, one of Germany's leading rocket scientists who was taken to America following World War II and assisted greatly in the NASA program. I don't think I picked up on that.
Yeah, I assumed with that backstory, that's why his other son's name was Vern.
There you go. Well, with it being Jules and Verne, Jules Verne wrote 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I think.
Mm-hmm.
H.G. Wells wrote The Time Machine. It's interesting that they didn't go with that, but yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It felt more personal to Doc and Clara's love story.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, fair enough. So according to the clock behind them, Doc and Marty have their picture taken at 8:08 p.m. This is possibly a reference to the 88 miles per hour speed the DeLorean must reach before it can travel through time. That's really nice. Can't say that I caught that either. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. We got Elizabeth Shue back in this film, Phil, for like 90 seconds or 2.5 minutes. I don't know what the time was, but yeah, we didn't get it very long. She's still on that porch.
Mm-hmm.
They got back to her. I like that Marty had to voice that. What? She's on the porch, and he's like, "It'll be fine. It'll be fine." And it was fine. So at least she's on the porch, safe and sound.
Yeah, he comes in, gets her and picks her up in his fancy new Jeep.
Yep. Yeah. That's a big freaking truck. A different world in 85. Don't have to worry as much about, you shouldn't be sleeping on your porch these days.
No, definitely not.
I wouldn't recommend it. So, yeah, that's good. Each of Needle's henchmen comes from one of the other gangs in the trilogy. I didn't know this. J.J. Cohen played Skinhead in Biff's gang in the 85 film and in the 89 film. Ricky Dean Logan played Data in Griff's gang in the 89 film, and Christopher Wynn played an unnamed member of Buford's gang in the film. Cohen appears in all 3 movies. Every version has 3 yes men just kind of bumbling around him. I like this a lot better than, and I knew I enjoyed it, but I actually liked it a lot better than I had remembered. In terms of being quotable, what do you think about this movie in terms of like compared to the other 2? Still got some quotable lines here, but how does it hold up overall?
Yeah, so many great moments of him confusing people by talking like someone from 1985. Like when he's eating a pie, he's like, "Oh, frisbee, far out," and they're so confused by it. They're like, "What? It's right here. It's close."
Yeah, I like when Buford asks what Marty's name is, and he says it like they should be impressed. Eastwood, Clint Eastwood. And like, what kind of stupid name is that? They're all laughing at him.
Yeah. Yeah, there are several scenes of him just like it just throws out some random slang and everybody's like, "What are you talking about?"
Right, yeah. And what about Doc getting like he wasn't even drunk and he takes one shot and he goes through. Man, when that stunt man hit that table, that was some fun stuff, dude. He hit that, flipped that thing. It was great. What a great spot.
Wake up juice.
Yes, wake up juice. What in the world they put in that stuff, I wonder? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I love that's one of the funnier gags from the movie is he's just going on and on about all this stuff from the future, and you're thinking he's drunk this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody asks, "Well, how many drinks has he had?" None. He's still holding the first one I poured for him.
Yeah.
After he comes in, he's like, "Leave the bottle," and then he never actually has a drink.
He takes the shot and goes through the table. That great pratfall. And Marty's like, "Oh my God, Doc, how many do you have?" The bartender's like, "Just that one." What? He's like, "Come on, Doc, good God, get up." That
So
was
funny.
awesome.
It's so funny.
Can't hold your liquor, get up. That's a great gag. Like one shot and that immediately. Because the bartender's like, "No," because he knows what's going to happen if he has one drink. That was really good stuff. Yeah, the Colt gun salesman we said from Blazing Saddles, Burt Gilliam. He's talking about the Colt Peacemaker. It's going to be the most famous, and he was right, by the way. It was the most famous gun of the Old West.
Yeah.
So they shoved as much stuff in there as they could. And he's like, "Just tell me one thing." He said, "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Marty's like, 7-Eleven.
7-Eleven. I don't know if this was just me, but I kind of felt like the Doc stuff in the drink also seemed like it was very close to stuff from Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Roger Rabbit in the bar.
Interesting. Yeah, that's right, because tunes can't drink, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Take the drink. Take the drink. I do want this drink. You do want this drink.
Yeah. God, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I've seen that movie so many times. It's crazy.
I reference shaving a haircut quite a bit of
Mhm.
Roger behind that speakeasy wall, and he's like he's knocking on the walls trying to get him to come out. He's
Yeah.
doing the shaving the haircut bit, and the whole time he's back there like turning red and shaking. Steam coming out of his ears. It's so funny.
Yeah, because Bob Hoskins is like, this crap. What are you going to do? And he turns around and Roger's going nuts. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Marty at that one point, he's like, bartender says that's the strongest stuff they got. And Doc begins to pour alcohol into the DeLorean's gas cap. And he says, "Try it." Marty's trying to start the car. The engine barely begins, or it begins to barely start as he keeps turning the keys. He's like, "Give it more gas." He's like, he blew the fuel injection manifold. And I'm thinking, man, I'm glad that Doc knows his cars. Like, he's an engineer, he's a scientist, which it makes sense, I guess. But like, can't build a time machine out of a car. We don't know how a car works. I think I'd be, if they were depending on me to figure it out, I could do very, very little. Are you a car guy at all, Phil?
No, like
No?
many things that my dad is very good at, I am not good at that. My dad was a mechanic. I don't know anything about cars.
Oh wow. If your dad's a mechanic, man, you don't have any excuses here. What happened, Phil?
My dad never taught me anything about cars. There's
Oh well,
multiple
there you
things
go.
that my dad is good at that I am not good at.
Oh wow. Yeah, dude, I know very little. I pay mechanic. That's what I'll tell you. Yeah, I couldn't it's not me for sure. The powering the By the way, this jumped out at me and I'd forgotten this. When he tells him the DeLoreans always ran on gasoline. It's fine because they never said it didn't. But at the end of part 1, when he comes back with that get up and those shades on and he goes through the trash can and he says, "Doc, what are you doing?" He says, "I need fuel." Come on, man. Like, did they ever, because I can't remember right now, did they ever establish the flux capacitor needed a different fuel than the car did?
Yeah, that is true because he does use the trash as fuel in the second movie,
Yeah.
but then it's back to gasoline in this movie.
I kind of feel like it's fine that they threw that in, but it kind of also felt like they stuck it in.
Yeah, unless are we to believe this is a different DeLorean? This is before he went back to the future and made the upgrades on it?
I don't know. That's a good question. Well, nothing I bump into too awful hard, but being a nerd, sometimes I
Yeah.
um notice stuff like that.
Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, because I was trying to in my head think, okay, well, how would he have had the technology? That's right, because the DeLorean that they went back to the future in was the DeLorean that Doc buried for him to find early in the movie. The DeLorean
Mm.
that he buried is still there.
That's true. Well, kids, as you can imagine, there's a lot of stuff been written about the Back to the Future trilogy through the years. People noting Easter eggs. I would say the majority of it is intentionally planted. I think some of it's maybe fan theories. We won't get into too awful much of that. But simple things like the JVC video camera, you can see it on the bed during the opening shot of the first movie. And it's the video camera that Marty later uses to film the DeLorean footage. And it's also a clue to how much time Marty spends at Doc's place. The Burger King wrappers are also a pretty good indicator. So it shows you that he's hanging out at Doc's place quite a bit. So that's cool. The CRM 114 on the amp, which I not remember that at all, alludes to Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove and is referenced throughout movie history as a popular Easter egg. I never knew this. It's kind of like the A113 Easter egg in Pixar films, referencing the classroom for first year graphic design at the California Institute of Arts. I didn't know any of that.
I knew the Pixar reference.
I didn't know that this other one was similar to it. 1646, John F. Kennedy Drive. As he's rushing to school in the first episode, Huey Lewis and the News' Power of Love tune is on. 1646 is on the gate as he's leaving Doc's place. This implies that Doc is living out of his garage, no longer the massive mansion from 1955. Doc does say that his time traveling dream cost him his family fortune. I don't know that I ever pieced that together either.
I did, because he definitely had less money. He had put
Yeah.
everything into this time travel. I did piece that together.
Yeah, for sure. Again, kids, a lot of stuff like that happening throughout the past several years. The Twin Pines Mall. And, I kind of feel like, running back down through the list here because it's the last time we're reviewing Back to the Future. The Twin Pines down to Lone Pines Mall. That's a great gag. I love that gag. Copernicus is the dog in this movie and not Einstein.
Yes.
Which, by the way, what happened to Copernicus? Because when they come back with the train, they came back to get Einstein. Did you see the other dog in the car?
No, it was just Einstein.
Getting a love for Copernicus, man. What happened? But I do like the fact that they tied the third film back. A lot of this stuff these days, Phil, is just kind of par for the course when you're making a trilogy or a couple movies or whatever it looks like, that you have to have the connective tissue to go back to the first film. But this was the first. Wasn't this the first like time travel trilogy? I can't think of another. Am I forgetting one that was
Pretty
before
sure.
this?
Pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
I
Set
would
the
have.
bar, man.
I would have thought it would have been really, really funny if Doc is trying to explain to Marty, like, man, love at first sight is not a thing, and he's just like, yes, it's the power of love. And Doc is just like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, the Huey Lewis song.
Yeah. We did get a little bit of Huey Lewis in there. But they saved the ZZ Top song to the rolling credits at the end. Didn't even put it in the movie, man.
It wouldn't have really fit in the movie.
No, I guess not. Yeah. Yeah, we talked about the cameos at the saloon. Pat Buttram is one of those, and I believe this was Pat Buttram's last film. Iconic Western actor. And this is when they go to hang Marty. Did we talk about them hanging Marty yet?
We did not.
So that's a reference. Doc shooting the rope is a reference to a Clint Eastwood film, Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where Clint Eastwood's character shot someone down who was being hung. So there you go. And let's see, the clock's arrival, which I don't know that I caught this when they're talking to the train conductor. If you look behind them at one of the back cars, they're unloading the clock for the clock tower. It was being delivered to Hill Valley.
I did notice that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. And we actually got Clara is in the background of a shot. It's when Marty and Doc are standing outside of a building looking at a map on the wall, I guess at the train station. and there's a woman in a blue dress, and it's her, it's Steenburgen in the background, but she's got her back turned. Yeah, that's cool.
um, I love, by the way, that Buford's whole reason for being mad at Doc about the $80 is essentially the gag from the first movie.
Yep.
It's the gag from the first movie of Biff being upset that his car is damaged, and so he takes it back to the mechanic and he's chewing out the mechanic. But this time he's chewing out Doc for horseshoe slipping off of the horse.
Yes. And he never paid Doc to begin with, but he still wants
He still wants the
money
money.
out of him.
And
Yeah.
his whole reasoning for thinking that he owes him money for something that isn't even Doc's fault is completely ridiculous.
Yeah. Absolutely insane. Yeah. But it's his car or it's the horse.
Yeah.
Jeez. You know, they stuck that barbed wire salesman in when Doc is contemplating taking that shot. And I kept wondering, is he supposed to be somebody? Like, he's just got a piece of barbed wire. And I'm like, I don't know, does this guy play a part? And it just turns out that they put him in the movie because it was supposed to be a wink and a nod to the real life inventor of barbed wire named Joseph Glidden. And Glidden evidently became the richest man alive because of barbed wire. So who would have thunk it?
Yeah, and he gives us all the exposition on a train of man, that one guy, I've never seen anybody so heartbroken over a woman.
Yeah,
If he doesn't give all of the exposition, maybe Clara does not get off that train.
that's true.
I
So
love
he served a purpose.
he served a little bit of a purpose. I love Clara telling him to tell her the truth. And he does tell her the truth, and then she gets mad at him and does the usual, I never want to see you again.
Right, of course. I mean, cold turned on him too. Just flat out turned on him. Turns out a time traveling story is not a hit with the ladies. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah. Doc quickly learning a lesson that most men learn, that sometimes telling a woman the truth does not work.
Yeah. So we're not saying we necessarily advocate lying to women, but look, what they don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Well, I thought, by the way, she was great in this, and just enough of the performance where she had to be, and I thought she fit in nicely. And there's a part of me that's like, man, if you'd wanted to, you could have put her ancestors maybe in very small roles. But then by part 3, when you look at her, you're like, wait a minute, did we know her from somewhere else? Like, I feel when part 2 and 3 were written, they were going to do part 1, as we know. So I guess their thought wasn't there to include her in the timeline anywhere, but I think that would have been a cool touch as well.
Well, Clara Clayton in the future was supposed to be dead, so there wouldn't have been any ancestors, correct?
Oh my God, well done.
If they don't stop that carriage from falling off of the cliff, she would have died.
So they did count on it, is what you know.
Yeah,
That's a good pull. That's a good pull.
Essentially, because we're told that the ravine is named after her.
Sure.
She fell off there and died.
Makes
His explanation for that was also very grim and funny. His explanation of being like, well, all of us kids wanted to see one of our teachers die, so we always liked that story. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, God. That was a little dark. Yeah, for sure. The train that we mentioned has actually starred in more than one movie. They refer to it in Hollywood as the movie star locomotive. The Sierra Number 3, perhaps the most famous train in cinematic history, starred in an estimated 170 films. And it's the time traveling train. And of course, it wasn't the train that fell into the ravine. That was a model. Why they felt the need to tell us that, I don't know. We assume it's not a real train. They're throwing off a cliff. So, in case anybody out there was curious. Yeah. That's funny. The ravine's name, Eastwood Ravine. That's nice. Again, like we said before, nice touch. That's good stuff. Yeah, dude, you know what? At the end of the day, this trilogy just needs to sit by itself. I just don't see the need. If you want, I guess if you wanted to, if you were just hell bent on revisiting this universe, you could just not make it about the McFlys or about Doc Brown. You could maybe mention Doc. You could say that thanks to Doc's invention, you know, this person or whoever, you could make it a female, whatever you wanted to do. Like if you were hell bent on even having the DeLorean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it had to happen. I don't know. Maybe just don't have the McFlys or Doc in it.
Yeah.
You know?
I really like the idea once you mentioned it earlier of the Council of Biffs. I think a good, easy way you could go back and do this is have Biff's son steal the time machine and the Council of Biffs or other Biffs convincing him it's his destiny all along to be just like him, and he's the one Biff in their entire ancestry that ends up being a protagonist and a good guy.
That would be wonderful. Oh my God, that could be the hero of the next film.
Yeah.
Oh, you may have just saved it. Well, never mind. Let's make the movie. Let's
There you
do
go.
it.
Just Kiff, that's his name. There you go.
Kiff. Yeah, you got to stay. Well, it's been one G and two B's. So yeah, I guess a K would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Riff. I don't know, something.
Yeah, Kiff ends up saving the day and bringing the time machine back to its original owner after he convinces his ancestors that I'm not like you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know, man. It kind of feels like the shallow end of the gene pool with this family line. It's not looking too good for the Council of Biffs here. Kind of feels like they're doomed to be stupid. Murdering thieves. Yeah, all of them essentially. It's funny how things took a turn. We just thought Biff was just a moron, a doofus in part one, and then in part two he's a murderer. In part three, his ancestor is a no good, dirty murderer. Literally.
Also attempted rapist in the first movie.
That's true. I forgot about the attempted rapist part. Like, I shouldn't forget that ever. Again, like, dude, the movie's made in '85. It's still a bad thing. But like, fast forward 20 years later, maybe we're not putting that in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we don't do that. Maybe we just have him kissing her.
Yeah. I love the idea now of future Biff's son being the protagonist. That'd be so funny.
Yeah.
There's so many great things you could do with that. Like the idea of that all of these other Biffs from other timelines are womanizers, and you'd have a Biff or Jif from present day that's completely desensitized to this stuff because porn and OnlyFans and all this stuff is everywhere.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, it's everywhere, man. You hear about it all the time. Just heard about another wrestler yesterday who's going to start one. And that's fine. I don't hate on anybody, but yeah, it's just times have certainly changed, man.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, at the risk of going down a rabbit hole, we don't need to be going down a funny haha show. We're going to stop right there, I think. Again, I think this should be left alone. I love your idea, though. And here's what I think. I don't think the studio is going to honor it. I don't think they're going to honor Zemeckis' wishes.
Of course.
I hope that he and Gail have great attorneys who manage to sew this thing up forever to the point where their families even have control.
Yeah.
I'd be totally fine with that. But I will tell you that Prince didn't want all that music released that he'd recorded over the years that were put into vaults, supposedly. Full movies filmed from start to finish, supposedly, and he never wanted them released. And so he dies with no will. The family is doing what the family does. People want to get a payday, and they're releasing content, and they do it under the mask of well, we're giving Prince fans, content. I'm like, nah, I don't,
We don't need it. It's fine.
right. And I know that he didn't want it. That makes me not even want to hear it, dude.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's anything else you can really do with Marty. I mean, I'm sure there's stories to write about anything. If you sit and brainstorm anything long enough, you can come up with a story. But
sure.
I don't really feel the need to revisit any of this. I mean, the kind of Cobra Kai way I just thought of trying to revisit it and making the bad guy the good guy of that film and telling it from a different perspective, that could work. But also the fact that Robert Zemeckis is saying he doesn't want to do any more movies, maybe we don't need to do it. It's fine.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's absolutely not necessary. You just don't need to do it. Well, kids, there's plenty of other time traveling stuff to watch. And again, if you haven't binged 1, 2, and 3 in a while, next time you have a free weekend, just start on that Saturday, man, and just binge all 3. Kick back, make some popcorn, just enjoy the weekend. I think that's a fun way to spend some time. I may do that myself. So, yeah, glad we did this. Glad we got all 3 movies in the can. Makes me want to go check out the animated series, which I may do just to see how it is. By the way, they have done a few things here and there. Nothing like a project, but they did that bit in 2016 where it was like a spoof. They were teasing a part 4, and I forget what they did it for. Did you see that little clip they had? And Michael J. Fox was there and like the outfit and everything in the commercial.
I vaguely remember that, but I don't remember
Yeah,
what it was for.
yeah, it was just what got everybody wound up, man. People were like, "Oh my god, it's coming back! It's coming back!" People were very excited. It's very cool that there's like, you know, much like any successful franchise, especially in this sci-fi genre, Back to the Future has legions of fans, dude.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. I don't know that they have Back to the Future cons, but if they did, that might be something to check out.
Yeah.
Like
No, I mean,
theme specific.
there are always tons of cosplayers, either as Marty or Doc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, always good. Well, kids, there you have it. There's Back to the Future Part 3. And lots more to come here. Again, more time traveling stuff, I'm sure, at some point. As they make it, we review it and all this other stuff as well. But Phil, before we get out of here, let's get your last word on Back to the Future Part 3.
Listen, Universal, if you want to steal my idea of Jiff being the protagonist, I wouldn't be mad at it. Just a little disappointed. Uh, no, seriously, there's so many funny things that you could do with that. Like the idea of old man Biff trying to explain to this kid time travel, and he's just like, "Oh, like the Avengers," and he's like, "What?"
Oh, that would be good. The full circle referencing, man.
Yeah, but no, this is still a very enjoyable movie. I'm sure for some people, the third movie is jarring because it's so different from the other 2 movies, but I think it's still very enjoyable. I think it's a rewarding and a satisfying end to this trilogy. I don't
Mm,
think we need to make any more movies. Um, it's good to see Doc get his happy ending after everything from the first 2 movies, and from here on, Marty's future is open ended. Did not
yeah,
crash into that Rolls Royce. Um, maybe he ended up being a rock star. I don't know.
that's right. She says that it's erased. What's that mean? And he says the future's not been written yet. That's pretty cool. Good way to end it. Good way to end it. Yep, I agree. And I do enjoy this movie. Everybody can like what they want, but I don't think this movie is as bad as some people maybe have suggested it is. Maybe it was audience fatigue by the time part 3 came out. I don't know. It's possible. But I thought, like as Phil said, it's a fitting end, a fitting way to wrap everything up, tie everything together. To me, there's no loose ends left. I think this is a complete story, and I just don't see the need to revisit it, as we said before. But we will see what happens in the future, kids. Never say never for anything because you never can tell what could happen, especially in Hollywood. But that's it for us, folks. Stay tuned for a lot more. And as always, thanks for following the show and share it wherever you can. We'll be back real soon with another episode. But until then, that is Back to the Future Part 3. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.